Hello, welcome to the 19th episode of my podcast, Open Conversations. I'm your host, Young Bella Sabetwo, and today's episode going to be talking about the NBA Finals, Nuggets versus Heat, uh, and then just other slew of topics that I want to talk about. That's pretty much, basketball related subjects. And so, right, first subject. Nuggets versus the Heat, the NBA Finals. Let's give a recap. Obviously, um, Denver Nuggets are the NBA champions. They have been able to accomplish history in winning the first championship in 56 years as they've been a franchise in the NBA. So this is their first one. Um, I just think that you know um, they definitely proved a lot of people wrong. A lot of a lot of doubters, a lot of people who didn't a lot of people didn't believe in their abilities throughout the season. Um, they was number one in the Western Conference for the majority of the year. Um, and it was some times where I think they weren't first, but it was very, very, very you know small times throughout the season, but for the most part they was number one throughout the West, and a lot of people didn't still doubted the fact that they could win the championship. Still doubted, Nikola Jokic was the level player that he really is. He could, you know, a lot of people thought it was a fluke. People didn't think that he deserved to be a you know, ongoing three-time uh, NBA champion. I mean, NBA champion, three-time MVP, and so I think he proved a lot of that wrong with his play throughout the playoffs. Leading in points, rebounds, assists uh, throughout the playoffs, averaging more than 20 plus points. Uh, and with if you average it out, a triple double. So, um, having a dominating, he played very well, obviously, throughout the season. But for me, I think he upgraded, and that's what you want from, I think, your franchise kind of players, the superstars. I think what makes the certain players taking that leap in terms of like their status in terms of in the league star, the superstar type of thing, is the ability to um like your game going up in the playoffs. There should be an improvement in terms of your game and your stats, you know what I'm saying, from regular season to postseason. It's got to be, in my opinion, a upgrade in your play, and that's what catapults, that separates the superstars from the stars. In my opinion, I think Nikola Jokic did a good job of that. Jamal Murray, played really good throughout the the, the series and the playoffs. Um, Multiple 10 plus assist games, had a game with zero turnovers. Um, he definitely had a really great series and playoff run, I think they really, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray really established, that the dynamic duo-ness of, you know, them both on the floor. You know what I'm saying? Got a lot of people now crowning them as the best duo. I don't think, at the start of this season, people were, mentioning Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic as one of the top premier duos. I think there's a lot of other, duos that most people would have said were quote unquote better or whatever. But, obviously we've seen what, the impact that these two guys could have um, on the floor. And um, Porter Jr. hitting big shots, and Gordon really, stepping up his game, had 27 points, you know, and the game 4 game. All right, stepped up, you know, Kentavious Caldwell Pope hitting big shots. Um, Jeff Green, so veteran presence. So, these guys stepped up big time for him. Christian Braun, did stepped in when he could. Um, great couple years for him. He's a national champion and now NBA champion. So um, yeah, the Denver Nuggets, they're definitely going to be a force to be, in this league for the next couple years, um, competing at this level in terms of um, title contention, right? They're going to be in that mix, I believe, strongly with for sure in the next for the next 4 or 5 years. If they can keep, of course, the main core, the main duo, Murray and Jokic together. Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon, really, I think those are the two players that they really need to do some, one of those two guys have to take another leap. I'm looking for one of those two guys to really take another leap in terms of their playing career this up and coming season. But they can, keep those core guys and obviously have some solid role players around them. They're going to be competing at this level for some years to come. And with having a player like Nikola Jokic on the team, a superstar player who's not necessarily relying on his athleticism to be effective. He, he's a guy who can be great for the next, and possibly, because I see him kind of following that Tim Duncan mode. I could see Joker being with Nuggets for the next maybe 10 years. It's in his 8th season. This is the prime of his career. He could definitely do another 10 years in this league and to still play with the Denver Nuggets. And I think he could play at a high level for the next 10 years. And so, yeah, to get into the Miami Heat, who, had a very, very, very good season for a team, definitely overachieved for most people, for most critics out there will tell you. They definitely, um, Eric Spoelstra really got the most out of his guys. Jimmy Butler, put it out on the line. Um, the Gabe Vincent, Strus, Caleb Martin. These guys stepped up big in the playoffs, and can't 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 discredit them. Uh, they I think the recent talks been about um, potentially Dame Lillard coming to Miami. That can be a significant upgrade. That can be potentially the piece they need to get over the hump, win that championship. And so, um, for me, I think Miami really needs to, consider what their options, what they got going on, and try to bring a guy like a Dame Lillard on the team, who has, even said he has expressed interest and, you know, has a pretty solid relationship with Bam. Um, Him and Jimmy Butler are kind of that same club, so to speak. So I think it could work. I think it could be a very, very, very good option for the Miami Heat. But you know, this is gonna be a team that's gonna be competing um, at this level, for the next couple of years as well too. Um, Maybe not as you know long as the Denver Nuggets because they're a relatively young team. Jimmy Butler is relatively later in his career. If they bring a Dan Lillard on the team, still in their prime, but they're relatively later in their careers. Um, you know, so the run won't be too long, but they're gonna be competing at this level at least for the next 2 to 3 years. You know, um, yeah. So, and I gotta give acknowledge fact I did pick the Denver Nuggets to win this series. So, finally got the last round got both my picks wrong, and I gotta acknowledge this fact. I held myself accountable for that. I held myself accountable for the fact I did get it correct this time, and so yeah. So uh, next time, how Steph Curry evolved the game of basketball. He's probably been like I say in terms of the NBA, it the style of play I think in the NBA evolves like every 4 years. That's just like my opinion, and I think when you look at the style of play in the NBA and not just in the NBA but just in all circuits of basketball, AAU, high school, just pick up whatever, you know, very, 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 very similar to the way that Steph Curry plays the game of basketball, and that he um, probably has the best range of a shooter in NBA history or just basketball history. His in terms of his percentage to shoot from distance, he's the best in my opinion. Think nobody would deny that. I mean, his range in terms of shooting basketball ranges parts a little behind half court, and past half court, it's he's a complete a threat, so to speak. And so um, uh, I think as well as his ability he's the best shooter of all time off the dribble. Um, I think the closest player that I can think of that could rival Steph Curry's ability to shoot off the dribble is Kyrie Irving. Um, he is the greatest shooter off the dribble, right? And the only some of the only few players that come to mind that can rival him is Ray Allen or Reggie Miller. But in my greatest shooter off the dribble, and um, that's all of these three things to have. These three things I think, really what makes Steph Curry such a unique player. And the fact that his game has affected the defensive schemes that NBA players we're used to playing, having to be forced to come out to the perimeter to defend because Steph Curry can pretty much score as soon as you get past half court. Um, and so that leaves, that opens a lot of, you know, lanes, driving lanes, and which makes it really hard to defend. Um, and then, it's always been a traditional saying that you live by the three, die by the three, and you can't win an NBA championship from being a predominantly shooting type of team. Steph Curry is a four-time NBA champion. You know what I'm saying? And so that's a proven incorrect statement. Um, that's his main game, shooting, and he's proved that incorrect. And so you see guys throughout the league who have in recent years stepped their range in terms of their shooting, including the Dame Lillard, including LeBron James, including Trae Young. These guys have stretched their game out. You know what I mean? Um, and it's been great. These and many other players. Just some notable guys who who in recent years like Steph Curry who have shot the ball from distance pretty well. Um, and that's speaking to Steph Curry's style of play, his the way he plays. Um, so you know, I just definitely wanted to you know shed some light on Steph Curry because it's always it's been somewhat of a narrative to some degree about how he's you know messed up the game of basketball. You have people just wanting to just go out and shoot threes. Well, that's because of Steph Curry. It's not for nothing. People see the success and the way he's been able to shoot the three ball at such a good, percentage, and people want to do the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So um, it just goes to show the impact, the influence, the way he's evolved the game of basketball, in my opinion. So yeah. how I think how I think the point center, point four has influenced today's NBA. You know, terms like point center and point forward are new terminology, so to speak, in terms of NBA and basketball reference in general. Um, we all know that from a center position you play in the paint. Power forward is played primarily in the paint. Well, in the current NBA, these guys who were traditionally playing in the paint, the front court, are now playing in the perimeter, and even in a lot of cases, even facilitating the offense of the team. Getting guys involved, setting players up um, from the perimeter and in the post. But when you think of these kind of names, point center, point forward, names that obviously come to mind when we talk about point centers, Nikola Jokic, right? 6'10", 6'11", um, he plays like a a big man. He's a great rebounder, has great post moves, can go and do work down low in the paint. But at the same time, he can do work on the perimeter. He can shoot the three ball, as we've seen, at a high percentage. He can facilitate, get his teammates involved, get assists from the perimeter. He can bring the ball up. He's a solid enough ball handler to bring the ball up, you know, dribble, get guys involved. So this is all you're getting from your traditional center, right? This is what, you know, there's really hasn't been. Nikola Jokic is probably the first guy that we can really he coined that phrase point center, and it really applies to a T point center. Um, you know, from a point forward position, a guy who I think has made a Hall of Fame career um, as this kind of role. Point forward is some guys who kind of been doing that in recent years, but somebody who's done that very well is Draymond Green. He gets, he facilitates a lot of the offense secondary to um, Steph Curry. I think Steph Curry is the best playmaker on the Warriors, second to Draymond. you know, Draymond does a great job of getting his teammates involved. He's averaged around 6 to 7 assists per game throughout his career for the most part. And, as a starting kind of player around that. Um, that's what Draymond does great. That's what makes him one of the things that make him a unique player. Obviously, he's great on the defensive end, but his ability to get his teammates involved and be a good playmaker, great at setting screens to get his teammates open. Not necessarily the great offensive threat scorer as in Nikola Jokic. Doesn't have that. He's not at that dynamic of a scorer, but obviously when talking about and even facilitate, I think Nikola Jokic does that a bit better too. But nonetheless, I'm not trying to down anybody, whatever. But he does a great job facilitating the offense from that traditional power forward sense. And there's other guys we can talk about, who, kind of like at this point forward, Zion, he in a lot of ways is, plays that point forward role. He can obviously score in the post, but he can, play from the perimeter. He can score, get his bucket, drive, whatever he has to do from the perimeter, and he can facilitate. Kind of, not that great. That's not really, but he does. He can facilitate from the perimeter. Jason Tatum is another guy that comes to mind. He's great. Not only in inside, but he's probably what I feel. Excuse me, traditionally a small forward, power forward, but he plays that. He can play point. He can bring the ball up. He can facilitate the offense, get guys involved. There's another. Julius Randle is another guy who kind of fits that point forward. So it's somewhat of a common thing amongst the point forward term in this league. Oh, LeBron James, obviously, but it is somewhat of a in recent years, kind of common to have a kind of a point forward. The point center is the thing that we're gonna, I believe, start seeing more of. That's going to be the new style of play as we, I think Nikola Jokic, his game is going to be that influential that now moving forward, you're going to have, more point centers, you know, um, emerging in the NBA. And, it's influenced the way that, you know, traditionally you've had, in most cases in past times, two point guards. Two, usually probably under 6'4", 6'3", um, point guards. You had a plethora of smaller point guards in the league that were, 6 foot, 5'11", 5'10", even smaller, 5'9", 5'8". You had these, a plethora of guys who filled these point guard roles and had contributing roles on, or major contributing roles on NBA rosters. But when you look at this current recent years, with the emergence of the point center, the point forward, um, that's not the case. You do have your few guys, few smaller point guards who are in the NBA. You do still have that. It's a minority group. You still have a couple guys who are, smaller point guards on NBA rosters, but to my point is that it's not a plethora of them anymore. And most guys aren't really having, even if they're all are on NBA rosters, they're not really having much major roles on NBA rosters. When a lot of guys, and it's a lot of great smaller point guards, in recent years that aren't in the league, like Isaiah Thomas, Kemba Walker, Trey Burke, DJ Augustin. These are all guys that's been in the NBA, played well in the NBA, but the emergence of guys like the Nikola Jokic's and Zion Williamson's and the Brandon Ingram's, like these guys are, dominating the ball, at a way bigger position. You know what I'm saying? From you have a 6'11" guy in Nikola Jokic pretty much being your primary ball handler, secondary ball handler, with Jamal Murray being the point guard. This is a 6'4", 6'5", you know, a point guard who's your ball handler. So this creates an incredible mismatch for most defenses when you have a 6'4", 6'5" point guard, and then you have another 6'11" point guard in Nikola Jokic. So even when you look at the Denver Nuggets, you had guys like Ish Smith, who's a smaller point guard, Reggie Jackson, who's smaller point guard but very athletic, not really get much minutes because they don't really their size kind of makes them obsolete when it comes to you know the ball handlers who are on their team, and Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Um, and so, you know, defenses, like even on other rosters, defenses, if you have a smaller point guard out there on the floor guarding a Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, it's a major mismatch. Major mismatch. It's a very major size mismatch, and it highly favors, you know, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. So I'm definitely, gonna, it's already been kind of been happening and seen with a lot of smaller point guards not really having roles on NBA teams, but I think it's gonna even be more prevalent moving forward. But it's not to say that these guys are just going to be completely extinct, but because you got great smaller guards in the league like a Trey Young. But when you're talking about the elite guards in this league in the NBA now, they all are extraordinary in one or three areas. They're either extraordinary great scorers, extraordinary great uh, athletes, extraordinarily great passers and facilitators. They do one of those three things great, if not all three or two of the three or whatever. They do one of those three things great. And that's why they're on the NBA roster. So that's just what I really noticed talking about NBA in recent years. And then you might have, obviously you have your few minority of like smaller guards, who are in this league, who get minutes, like a Tyus Jones, who gets minutes and is one arguably the best backup guard, as they say. Like I think could start somewhere. Van Vliet, you know what I'm saying? It's still good of players that are of that like smaller point guard role out in this league, but like I said, it's not as prominent as past times. So yeah. Current best player in the NBA. Me talking about the beginning of this season, I had my top three was Giannis number one, Kevin Durant number two, LeBron number three. That was my top three coming into this season that just ended. Now that the season's over, that top three is different. Currently, I got Giannis Antetokounmpo at number three. He had a great season, MVP caliber season. Obviously got injured in the first round. Major impact loss for them, for Milwaukee Bucks, to not have debatably the best player in the league in the playoffs, and they weren't able to get it done. But doesn't take, obviously Giannis is a great player, but I definitely, got to, deduct him, his spot a little bit. Then number two, I got Joel Embiid, won the MVP, averaged 33 points a game, most points from the center position in some. Oh, I know there's some like long time. I think since Shaq in 01, who averaged like 29.5%. Been like over 20 plus years or something. But probably I think the only center I think comes to mind that averaged more than him at some point was Wilt. But had a great season. Didn't really dominate in the postseason. Kind of, he has a couple good games, but wasn't the dominant force he was in the regular season. So, but nonetheless, great season for him. I got him number two. Then at number one, it's undeniable. You got to go with Nikola Jokic. He really proved a lot. I thought he was a great player before this season, but he really, I think, cemented himself as not just a great player, but an all-time player in NBA history. And he didn't disappoint at all at any point. I mean, he played great every game. You know what I mean? Maybe not every game was as great, but he played relatively great every game throughout the playoffs. Led the league in led in points, assists, rebounds, had a stellar performance throughout the playoffs. And, you know, MVP caliber year during the regular season. So many people doubted him. So many people didn't think he would be deserving of a third MVP in a row. You know, there was talks about it being racially biased and, you know, he's this, that, worst MVP candidate, all these kind of things. Um, all these things go to the toilet when NBA Finals, win the NBA Finals and the NBA Finals MVP. So, Joker got the last laugh. Um, I think he's like I said, he's really shown and proved that he is that dude, rightfully so. Um, and yeah, next new NBA coach hirings. So it was recently Nick Nurse of the Toronto Raptors. He was the head coach, got fired, and is now transitioning into the Philadelphia 76ers head coach role, um, which just recently fired Doc Rivers, who was just there this previous season. Nick Nurse, who's won a championship, proven champion, um, should transition in well. It's you're coming in with this past season's MVP, a former MVP, some great role players, supplementary players, and, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker, all these guys, um, good players. And so you have something to work with. You got some good pieces. I think it's just a matter of getting these pieces to come together and really, click in the playoffs. They had, a great regular season. I think the main thing is just to get to a point where these guys can get it done in the playoffs. And, you know, that's, somebody like a Nick Nurse is going to have to be responsible for, making the correct adjustments, schemes, uh, calling the correct timeouts, do all the things that, head coach supposed to do, but, do these things well in the playoffs. And so, that's a very, um, like I said, attractive job for a coach coming in. Then you got over in the Phoenix Suns, they let go of Monty Williams, and it was talks about Doc Rivers filling that role, but I believe they are finalizing a deal with Frank Vogel, former head coach with the Lakers, recently won a championship in 2020. So you got another guy who's a proven champion in terms of head coach coming in to another very attractive situation where you got a guy like Kevin Durant, um, Devin Booker, two superstar level players, in my opinion. Um, and they just need to be able to build around those two guys. And Frank Vogel needs to be able to come in again, make the right adjustments in the playoffs. You know, make bring out the right schemes uh, in the playoffs. I think you know it should be a good mix for Phoenix Suns. You know what I mean? But then uh, Monty Williams recently said with let go of Phoenix Suns, and now he's transitioning for a 5-year, 6-year deal with for 78 mil. believe that was the deal, whatever. But with the Detroit Pistons, that's a young team, got some young core guys, and Kay Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Sadiq Bey. This is a franchise that, to me, I would definitely like to see, get back to a situation where they're contending, for, playoffs and, potential champion, but, for me, I would like to see the Pistons, be a contending team in the league. Um, Detroit, one of my favorite cities, and so, um, I just would like to see them, winning and bringing in Monty Williams, who has been in a situation who he came into, uh, when he came with Phoenix, that was a young core guys, Devin Booker, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges. Uh, so he knows what it's like to come into a young nucleus of guys, and so you're hoping he just does the same with the Detroit Pistons. He's really able to get these guys to up their game, get better, and be contending in the East. And so that's of the coaching hirings that I've heard to date that I'm aware of that has happened. So best landing spot for Kyrie, Dame, and Harden in the off season. Um, Kyrie, it should be an unrestricted free agent this summer. Dame isn't, but it's been some talks and rumors about Portland trading him. Um, and then James is a free agent. Starting with Kyrie, I don't think that the Dallas Mavericks would be advisable place for him to stay. I think that the duo between him and Luka proved to be, a situation where they could score the ball at a high level together while they're on the floor. But I don't think it's necessarily a matter of do they necessarily complement each other's games. They both are very ball dominant players to be effective. They're not necessarily great off the ball. I think Kyrie can be good off the ball, but he's not great off the ball. Um, and I think um, Kyrie would be better off. I think the Lakers would be a great spot for him. Reunite him with LeBron, and with being teammates with LeBron and AD and him, and I think it would be a good, big three type of thing. Um, him going to Miami, you know, him and Jimmy have a pretty solid relationship. They play Team USA. Um, I think, without any, quote unquote media distraction, they can be, it'd be a good spot for him. Um, Phoenix reconnecting with KD, being teammates with Devin Booker, I think would be a good spot. Um, and then if in Philly, James doesn't decide to leave, him pairing teammates with Joel Embiid, I think it would be a good look, a good spot. So I think Kyrie got some spots that I think personally would be good for him, be contending type of situation. Um, comes Dame, um, I think obviously he's expressed before. I think Miami would be a great situation for Dame. He's already expressed. He has a solid relationship. Pretty him and Bam are cool. They have a relationship, and he likes his game. Um, I believe him and Jimmy Butler kind of come from that. They're tough players. Um, come from like that same type of cloth, so to speak. I think that would be a great you know pickup for Miami Heat. Um, I think um, if situation happens where James leaves for Philadelphia, I think be a pair of teammates with Joel Embiid. Great pair. Um, going to the Lakers, being paired with LeBron and AD. Great pickup. Um, so these spots I think would be uh, great for um, Dame in terms of you know being in a position where he can contend for a championship. Because I know that's the primary thing he wants at this late of his career, to be able to contend for a championship. He's achieved most of the individual accolades and things of that nature. I think the main thing for him is just to win a championship. And so yeah, then I think when it comes to James Harden, I don't think it would be a bad situation for him to stay in Philadelphia. He paired with Joel Embiid, just recently won a championship. I mean, it's a championship, won the MVP. Uh, got a nice, supporting cast, and Tyrese Maxey, Harris. You got some pieces, and so I think maybe you add some pieces in the off season, maybe free agency that could help with the roster. And yeah, you know what I'm saying? I think, for him, if he wants to contend for a championship, man, staying in Philly would be a pretty good option. I think going to Phoenix, reconnecting with KD, um, and being teammates with Devin Booker, great three, um, having KD on your wing, Devin Booker on your wing, and James being the primary facilitator. He just led the league in assists with Joel Embiid. Imagine what he could do with Devin Booker and KD. Being on the same floor. So I think it would be a good match for them. Uh, I think that's the most appealing situation for James. Uh, and if he's not really wanting to compete for a championship, he goes to Houston. There's already been talks about that potentially. Um, it would be a situation you really wouldn't be contending for a championship. Just kind of wanting to be able to have kind of like the freedom, to kind of have that green light in terms of what he wants to do offensively. Um, potentially be able to groom the next level, their young talent. But, you know, James is a ball dominant player, so I don't know how that would work. But, there has been expressed interest for both sides to come and reconnect. So, yeah, that's my opinion on these guys, and what I think would be the best situation for them to land in terms of uh, the offseason and their NBA teams. So, yeah. So that concludes the 19th episode. Definitely appreciate y'all for watching and listening. Subscribe, like, share, follow, all of that. See y'all next time.